The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Mediaclip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Carl Bott, who's the founder of SnapShield, and he's coming to us from Nashville, Tennessee, even though he's originally a Michigander like me. Hey, Carl, how are you today?
Good, Gary. I appreciate you letting me jump on here and kind of chat about this. I'm excited.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey in the volume business before we get to SnapShield, because that's really where it all started, was your history in, or I should say, your legacy in the photo business.
So I moved to Nashville in 2015. I was actually homeless for about 8 weeks, and I was doing door-to-door sales, so I got really good at sales. But I actually worked for a photography company in Michigan and volume company, and so stumbled into the photography once I moved to Nashville, and just kind of took off and ran through that open door. We are contracted currently for upwards of 100,000 kids. So we're one of the larger companies around town. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got back into the industry after moving away. So
what was that like, starting one up from scratch? Because, I mean, obviously down in Tennessee, that's sort of the heart and soul of the school photography business, right? What did you bring to there that was kind of missing to the marketplace? Because, 100,000 heads is not a small business.
Yeah. So wildly enough, I was working for New York Life. We were doing a child ID program, and one of the guys was doing the fingerprints. The girl was doing all the printing, and they knew if I had photography experience. So I was actually going through and taking photos. One of the coaches, there's 4,000 kids at this event, and it was a youth tackle football jamboree. So it was kind of like their big scrimmage where all the teams would come together. Well, one of the coaches came up and was like, "Hey, you got a nice camera. Could you do our team photos this year?" And I said, I can, but why isn't your photographer doing that? She says, "I've been in this program for 7 or 8 years. We've never had professional photography before." I was like, "Wait, what?" So I started asking the other coaches. I'm like, of course, I go into sales mode. And I was like, "Doing your photos this year?" And they're like, "Photos? That's a great idea. We should do photos." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?" Totally open market.
Right.
I mean, it was insane. So I started picking up the phone and calling, and next thing you know, I booked 7 leagues at that 2-hour event. And so I was booked
right
the entire fall season, and I didn't even own a camera at the time. That's kind of how I got started in, this crazy market.
Okay. So you've grown and you've kind of had kind of an entrepreneurial sort of bent, and you've evolved into this product or a company called SnapShield. Can you talk a little bit about what SnapShield is and how you came up with it?
Yeah. So SnapShield actually started as a little passion project. And essentially what it is, it's protection from screenshots. A lot of photographers nowadays are running into the Facebook groups, the watermark removal groups, and with AI as prevalent as it is, parents are taking screenshots of the photos, popping it into these softwares, and then removing the watermarks. A couple of years ago, when I first started what wasn't even SnapShield at the time, it was just, I'm trying to stop people from doing this, because we're going through this cycle of new watermark, and then we're actually seeing sales decrease because the watermarks were so obnoxious that it wasn't working. So
a balance there, right, between watermark and obnoxious, where the parent can't even see the kid's expression.
Yeah. And so the buyer experience was really suffering. And so I knew if we could stop the screenshot from happening from the get-go, the watermark wouldn't matter. And so that was kind of the approach that I took. And so I built this out, and I had little pop-ups that came up, which I created this little bit of code using ChatGPT, and I just popped it in and said, "Hey, this is illegal." Well, I was at a conference and I was doing a demo one time, and somebody saw that pop-up and they were like, "Wait, what is that?" I said, "It's just this little thing I'm working on." They're like, "No, no, 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 no." And so that's kind of how it came to public market. Was I just had a lot of interest in it, and it's making a difference. Anytime somebody attempts a screenshot, it's reported back to the photographer with their access code, timestamp, date stamp. So I've really kind of put a lot of effort into this to essentially put the power back into the photographer's hands versus waiting for them to wait for something to happen on Facebook. And then at that point, it's too late.
Well, one of the things that I know about the SnapShield product is that it is more than just a utility to block screenshots, right? I mean, it's kind of beyond that, because I've talked to like Bob Kenward and people who are big fans of it, and they say things like, it really shows me the customer history, where I'm now getting orders from customers who never ordered before because they were probably screenshotting them.
Yeah.
And now I can see their buying history, and now they're actually having to buy because they can't screenshot anymore.
When I first started working on this, I was working on the reporting, we were at about a 2 to 3 per screenshot attempt rate. And then the following year, we were right between that 5 to 7%. And this past spring, we were between 12 and 15% theft attempt rate. So 1 out of every 9 parents is attempting a screenshot. Now, again, to be fair, not all of those are malicious, right? It could be mom trying to take a screenshot to show grandma or something like that. So I'm not saying that everybody's trying to steal from you, but it is a growing problem. And that's where I'm fearful. But yes, it's to that point. It's showing those trends so the photographer knows, oh, okay, yes, I want to go back to that school, or maybe that's a school I don't want to work with anymore. And that's where I'm bleeding from,
Yeah.
I tell people,
I mean, volume photography is a very data-driven business, right? And I mean, most people who are outside the industry don't understand that, is that it's very much revenue per head sort of, idea and all that kind of stuff. So this really is just another tool you can use to kind of determine, like you said, is this a school I even want to do business with?
Yeah, I have people that don't even put the protections on. So the buying experience looks exactly like it would without protections. And they're just watching the reporting simply to find out like what's happening in their business, right? Okay. And so when we start seeing a decline, we instantly think it's either photo quality or prices are too high or things like that. We haven't even been thinking about theft, because we don't have that physical product that's standing there on a shelf. Right. Well, now we can. And so now we can start determining which organizations are actually stealing from us and make educated decisions on those orgs.
So let's talk a little bit about, the legality side of it, right? You're not offering legal advice or anything like that. You're just providing a tool. But what could the industry do to educate consumers more? Because like you said, I think there's quite a few consumers, who don't understand copyright, especially as it relates to photography, right? Because it's on the internet, it's got to be free. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think part of it is an educational issue. Certainly there's a commerce issue, and maybe it is pricing in, because I see all those Facebook groups by myself, and it's like they want $40 for my first grader's picture. That seems a lot to me, but I think there's a lot there.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Photo retailers, energize your sales with ShareMe Chat, the proven texting platform. Using chat to text on your website keeps your customers connected and buying. See us at Pro and IPI to find out why dealers using ShareMe Chat close more sales without adding staff. Find out more at shareme.chat.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of this is education, which is why part of SnapShield, I wanted to have those consent boxes. So the first thing I tell people is have that opening page consent. So when a parent first logs into their online shop, a consent box pops up and it's fully customizable. So the photographer can kind of put their flavor on it. They can be as passive as they want, or they can be as aggressive as they want. I've got photographers that will just flat out say, hey, look, don't do this. We appreciate, you supporting small business. I've got other photographers that we're going to take you to jail. Knock it all. But that's the beauty of it. It fits your voice, and that was super important to me. But they actually have to check that box in order to continue to see their photos.
Right.
So to me, that gets rid of any claim of ignorance
Right.
that the parents didn't know, right? And because that's reported back to the photographer with that consent box, when the parent comes back and says, well, I didn't know, why am I being fined for this?
Right.
You've kind of got that proof now to say, well, you did consent to this,
Right.
again, whether they read it or not. But yeah, I think from a legality standpoint, I think it is a lot of education. And I think just having that has slowed down the attempts in itself.
So one of the challenges that I see is sort of, since everything went mobile, it's easier to do a screenshot. Platforms like Got Photo and Captura and Photo Day, they have all pushed for the mobile experience, but that also does open up the opportunity for the very easy screenshot.
Mobile is about of the purchases that we're finding online, just talking with a lot of the platforms. And about 72% of the screenshot attempts are coming from mobile.
Right.
So that's definitely an issue. And there's a lot of restrictions on mobile of what we can report, what we can actually see, what we can control. So the mobile companies want you to download an app. And so essentially it's kind of like, this might be a hot topic, but it's kind of like showing your receipt at Walmart versus showing your receipt at Costco, right? So at Walmart, I'm not a member of Walmart. I don't have to legally show you a receipt. I can walk right past that person and there's nothing legally they can do. Versus Costco, I have a membership with Costco. I signed an agreement stating that I will show my receipt before I leave that store. So there's a huge difference there. When you download that app, you give up those rights for mechanical presses, for volume button, power button, for all of that. So now I can fully control that with a downloadable app. But as you know, no parent wants to download an app once or twice a year to buy school photos.
Right.
So that's the struggle we're in. If we could pigeonhole parents to do that, then we would have full control. But we can't. And companies have tried it and they've completely tanked because parents don't want to take that route. So yeah, it's a struggle.
So let's talk a little bit about the policing of the Facebook groups, because I've seen a few of those, right? I'm sure there's more of them than what I see, but what is the behavior that happens there that is objectionable to photographers? For those who don't know, for the listeners who don't understand what's happening, what is actually happening?
Yeah, so there are actual watermark removal groups on Facebook and on all social media. And essentially what they're doing is they're saying, your screenshot here, and we'll just take the watermark off, whether it's an AI program, whether it is, somebody just popping it in the Photoshop and doing it that way versus what we're going to charge at $50 a digital download. So,
Right.
For these parents, it makes sense. And I kind of attribute it to the music industry. Like when we would download music on Napster and
LimeWire or whatever.
Yeah, I think it goes back to ignorance. I think a lot of these parents don't know, and then you have the thieves that are they're gonna thieve. So, but that's a lot of what we're seeing in the watermark removal groups. And the problem with Facebook actually has a clause, because I've done a lot of digging into this. Facebook has a clause that they can't be responsible essentially for the behaviors of the people on Facebook.
Right.
So what happens,
because they're not technically a publisher.
And so
I think that's the Section 201 stuff, I think is what that is.
We can submit the copyright removal, blah, blah, blah. And now Facebook is responsible if they don't flag the group. But the problem is it's so easy to start a new group. They're shutting down the Facebook group because now once Facebook's made aware, they can be sued. So we could actually do a class action against Facebook, but we've got to go through the ropes, and it could take 6 months just for them to remove it. And then in 2 minutes, they've started a new group, and then you have to go through the whole process.
Right, it's moving.
So that's why my whole goal was just to stop the screenshot from happening to begin with.
Right.
Make it more difficult for that end result.
So the other piece is some of the AI tools now are resistant to even letting you do things like remove watermarks.
It's all on how you prompt it. Like ChatGPT's gotten really good. If you ask it to remove a watermark, it says that's against my terms and conditions. But some of these AI platforms are being built by these guys that are removing it. And so, they're not putting in their terms and conditions that it's illegal.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, It's, I had somebody tell me one time, it's kind of like a lock, right? Locks are meant for honest. If somebody wants to break a lock, they're going to break
Yeah.
a lock. And,
Yeah.
that's just the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah, I mean, people have been even back in the days of paper proofs, right? People were stealing pictures. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just a question of, like you said, can you make it more difficult for the honest people to have a lapse in ethics,
Yeah.
to prevent those folks or the convenience folks or the people like that, versus the people who are just, hey, I don't respect laws, and I don't like what photographers are charging, and it's my kid, so it's I should have access to this picture regardless. So let's talk a little bit about, if I want to experience SnapShield as a customer, how can I do that, right? Do I have to be, can I do it myself? Do I have to be part of one of these other platforms? Who are the platforms you're integrated with? And take me through that.
So currently we have a full integration with GotPhoto.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's an integration, are live on platform that has an open HTML. I can go ahead and get it on there. That's kind of the biggest force. We've got to have access to that HTML. There's a platform that a customer's on, and I can get in with their tech team and work with them on that. We can integrate it.
Mhm.
So it could be on every platform by default if we from some of the platforms.
Yeah.
I do have 4 deals going right now. Very, very major platforms. And hopefully by the time that this drops, I'll be able to answer this question a little better.
Yeah.
So a lot more people are going to have access to this come fall season.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the GotPhoto relationship, since they have really been forward in this regard, really pushing stuff. And recently they had camp. What was that like? Because you were there doing your thing, right?
Yeah. So I do a lot of speaking. I'm usually there as the sales guy and automation guy. And so going to summer camp this a completely different experience being because I got a lot of really, really good feedback. And with SnapShield being as early as it is, I'm able to take a lot of that feedback and implement it, And for instance, one of the points we had was it was kind of an all or nothing. So once you implement the code, it's on every single job. And that was feedback that I got from summer camp. So I came within a week, I was able to get that up to where we can individualize SnapShield for each individual. That way, if you've got a private school that you don't want the protections on, you can take it off.
Right.
So it was pretty, to be honest, and I love summer camp, but it was a lot this year. just coming from a view, as I guess more of a vendor, actual participant / speaker.
So what is your model? How does Carl make money on this? Like, is it an installation fee? Is it a monthly subscription? Is it you get 10 cents per image blocked?
Yeah. So it's a subscription. Okay. It truly is just kind of what makes the one thing I did build in because of our industry. And I think the best part is I know the industry. I'm in the industry.
Right.
So I know in June and July, most people aren't using SnapShield. Right.
Right.
So I have a pause plan. And so you can actually drop down to that pause plan. Helps me pay for all this storage, but at the same time, you're not pitching out $49 a month to have the full protections. So start at $19 a month and kind of go up from there. I've got that all on the pretty simple.
So let's talk a little bit about you being from the industry, because I think that's important. The volume photography industry is very niche, very, very specific. And there's a lot of like homebrew culture that I see within the industry, right? Where you have, a lot of the companies that are in the business now are really coming from school photography companies. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it is some of the industry of advances, especially like now with AI. It's no different than when we were in film and we went to digital, right? I mean, there's just this shift in the industry. So it's kind of the same now, So I think it's taking more people that are close to home, as in the industry, versus these tech guys that are outside of the industry that just don't get the exact need schedule. Like Sinu, real good friend of mine, Michael and TJ Rack, real good friends of mine, they know the industry. So they're creating that program with that. And when I was talking with Sinu, he said it's basically Monday.com for volume photographers,
Right. There's really no way you could take Monday.com and make it apply to volume photography because it's just so specific.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the strength of some of these newer platforms are coming out. I mean, same thing with SnapShield. Again, I'm catering this to volume. Could a wedding photographer use it? Absolutely. But that's not my purpose yet.
The volume space, while it is fairly large as an industry, very niche but large, your technology could be applied to other portrait categories.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, I did a podcast for PPA, and they even said something about museum galleries, where people are stealing this stuff online and then making their own prints instead of purchasing from the gallery itself.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But again, I think this is where SnapShield could really help this entire industry outside of just school and sports photography. But, again, this is what I know. This is what I've lived and breathed for the last 16 years, so I'm not a newbie in this industry. And it's also just an industry that's given a lot to me. And I see a shelf life right now if we don't stop this, and it's scary, and so I figured, well, if I can make a difference and give back to an industry that's given so much to me, then that's what I'm going to do.
Because I think that's one of the things when I talk to people in the volume space, there is sort of this underlying anxiety about the future of the industry, right? Because your mom does have a pretty decent phone on her camera. She can take that picture. So, and how much can we lean into as an industry to, the memories, the tradition and all that kind of stuff? Because there's all kinds of cultural things happening that are eroding traditions, right? So obviously maximizing your current business is a high priority right now.
Every Sam's Club and Costco has a camera deal. It is making it easier for the soccer mom to start a air quotes volume company. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why, 20% of the attendees at SPAC are new every year because it's a lot of those folks, which again, God bless them for coming in the industry, right? I'd rather have people entering an industry than leaving one.
I think it shows the strength of the industry for sure. And there's gives and takes to that. I think there's positives and negatives. I think if they're getting educated now, we're not dropping to the bottom of the barrel to see who's going to charge, the least amount for an 8x10,
right?
Which is where I feel we were when digital
I agree.
was really coming out. And so there's always going to be a place, I think, for volume photography. But again, this theft thing has really kind of put a chink in that armor. So I think like we said before, if we don't educate people, it's going to be no different than the music industry where, these music artists, they don't really make much on their music anymore. They make money on live events and t-shirts. And the last I checked, nobody wants a t-shirt with my ugly mug on it. So,
I mean, and it is one of those things where I think when you look at the media business in general changing, I think you've hit on a great point because physical media was where people made money, right? Albums, CDs, and to a large extent that's come back, right? There's a whole other thread we could do about print and LPs and CDs, and now DVDs are coming back, right? Because people are rebelling against streaming services. But until somebody comes up with a streaming service for your photo, if you want a service, people are going to have to pay for it.
And, I think that's what it really boils down to is selling this as a service and experience versus I sell an 8x10.
Right.
When I first got the contract with the YMCA, I went 4 meetings before I ever showed them a product. And because all I pitched to them is this is what I'm going to take off your plate. And he laughed and he says, I haven't even seen your work.
Right.
So he says, He says, next time, can you bring something? And I said, well, I can, but I mean, an 8x10 is an 8x10, a 5x7 is a 5x7. We all sell the same stuff. If you've got a photographer over here that's selling something that I don't have, let me know. I've got 5 different collabs that I work with. Let's not talk product. Let's talk how I can let you do what you do best, and that's run this organization. And let me do what I do best, which is take photos. So I think until we start getting back to that and we quit arguing composite versus traditional and all this stupid stuff I see all over social media, it's
or even rebates, right? The whole discussion about rebating schools. That's a whole other issue, right? With I got to bribe a school to do business with me.
Yeah, I think we need to come together as a collective, and the professionals in the industry will be able to kind of choke that out. But again, that's just the new shift that we're going into. And you and I have talked about this. This is a very customer centric job. We are in a people industry. We're not in the photography industry. If people think this is about taking photos, you're going to lose.
And if you think SnapShield is about protecting your copyrights, that's just part of it, but that's not the whole story.
I think, again, it's protecting the legacy of the photographers. I run my photography company right now, and it's God, family, customers, and then that's it. But it has to be in that order, right? It's like you have to focus on your customers. It has to be customer driven.
Right.
If I don't even hire photographers. I mean, that's
photography, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do. My interviews have no questions about photography. It is, how do you work with kids? It's, what's your patience level? Like,
which is why I could never work for you. I have zero patience for that. Yeah, because I mean, you're talking about someone who's willing to, be at a school at 5 o'clock in the morning to set up lights and keep their cool and manage. The people want to do retakes, and the kid who won't comb his hair and all that stuff.
Well, and, go back to your question about SnapShield. I'm actually bringing my customer service girl from Legacy over to SnapShield because she knows that value, and so my goal and hope is that I can continue to run SnapShield with that same customer-centric first, photographers first. This is our livelihoods. And again, if I don't help protect that, then SnapShield doesn't have a place in the industry.
Right.
So, I mean, that's my drive and that's my passion now, which I'm actually in the process of selling Legacy because I am so passionate now about SnapShield. And I think this is going to be a game changer in the industry. So I want to put my all into this.
So if people wanted more information about SnapShield, how to get the little code widget on their to partner with you in some other way, shape, or form, how would they do that? Where would they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is getsnapshield.com. If anyone has questions specifically, they can either send a note through the website, getsnapshield.com, or they can just message me. I'm super open to that. I try to keep an open door policy. So if there's any platforms that want to partner, same thing, just, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to set up a meeting. And in fact, I've got a meeting with another platform right after this podcast. I mean, I think it starts with the platforms to get integrated because that makes it so much easier, again, on the photographers. So it's more of a plug and play.
Great, Carl. Great to see you. I'm sure we will see each other at an industry event in the near future. Yeah. And I hope all is well. And thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.